Chapter 1 Karazawa's soliloquy. In the end, nothing changed even after I came to this school. No, that's wrong. Maybe I never had any intention of changing, for better or worse. It's always been the same for me. After all, I understand myself better than anyone else. I know everything about myself, including my strengths and weaknesses. I know that none of the boys or girls like me. Even knowing that, I've never thought to change. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt me anymore. Because for some reason, I want them to feel that way. As I got out of the shower, I stood and looked at myself in the mirror completely naked, drops of water trickling down my skin. How many times had I thought about smashing the mirror to pieces? Every time I saw that old wound on my side, it was like diving back into my disgusting past, dizzy and nauseated. I gripped the sink and vomited. Why did I have to go through such an awful experience? Why do I have to suffer like this? Why? I've asked that question for a long time now. Words don't mean anything. The past can't change. No one can change it. God is cruel. My life was destroyed because of that nightmarish day. I lost my youth, my friends, and even myself. I have to fix that mistake. No matter how much people hate me, it'll be better than suffering like that again. I don't need youth. I don't need friends. The most important thing is protecting myself. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm a parasite, a weak creature that can't survive on its own. Chapter 2 The Gentle Days. It'd been 3 days since the end of that special test on the island. No other exciting events had occurred aboard the luxurious cruise ship that the advanced nurturing high school had provided for us, and we were enjoying the respite. It went without saying that time spent on a deserted island had caused a bunch of young, rambunctious students like us to lose our minds. We, the guys, were basically beast-sex-starved carnivores. While we watched the girls chattering and dilly-dallying like herbivores, the boys waited for an opening like the predators that we are. This luxurious cruise ship, equipped with everything, felt like a dream come true. This trip let us forget everything unpleasant. It wouldn't have been strange to fall in love here. Rumor had it that many couples had come together on this trip. Unfortunately, that wouldn't happen to me. I lived a mostly solitary life. The test hadn't changed my situation. No, that wasn't quite true. My environment had begun to change. Against my will. I'd been tasked with a major course correction. I'd originally come to the school for a certain reason. Contact with anyone outside is forbidden until graduation. That rule was the reason I entered. However, a certain man had been forcibly trying to establish contact with me. Chibashiro-sensei, my homeroom teacher, told me that. Then Chibashiro-sensei threatened to expel me from this paradise should I refuse to work toward Class A. Although I'd done nothing scandalous, a powerless creature like me had no choice but to accept. I didn't know whether she was lying or not. Therefore, I had to assume it was the truth. However, I didn't intend to dance to my homeroom teacher's tune forever. While I collected the necessary information, I considered that I might need to take action. A little devil perched on my shoulder whispered softly in my ear. It's better to get them before they get you. I wondered about the many ways I could force her to resign. That troubling thought lasted only a second, though. My mind returned to its normal blank way of thinking. Sigh. If only I had the power to rotate the earth on its axis myself. If I could do that, I'd be able to live freely, without having to worry about the small things. I looked out the window and daydreamed about Dragon Ball. 3 days had passed since the end of the test. Immediately after our survival test's conclusion, most of the students had been waiting for the other shoe to drop. They'd treaded lightly in case the school was up to something, but there were no signs of anything malicious. All was gentle and peaceful, as if summer vacation had truly started and this was now an actual fun, pleasant trip. The students began to relax, and behaved as if the test really were over. They thought this second week was purely a vacation. Everyone became increasingly lax. Despite our outward calm, we maintained a sense of readiness. People who know how to relax can be effective. You haven't been in the room all this time, have you? Hirata Yasuke, one of my cabin roommates, shook me from my reverie while I gazed at the sea. I don't really have any reason to go out. I don't have anyone to hang out with, either. That's not true, though. I mean, you have Sudao-kun and the guys, and Harikita-san. It was certainly true that such people had categorized me as a friend, and I reciprocated. But those at the bottom strata of the friends category are treated differently from other, higher-ranked friends. When someone wants to hang out, low-level friends are only invited 10% of the time. Naturally, I was that lowly friend. You might make more friends if you were a little more proactive, Anakaji-kun. Though I suppose it's none of my business. Hirata was very popular and admired by many students. All the girls adored him, and he had a girlfriend named Caruso. A man with so much happiness probably couldn't understand the pangs of loneliness. You're a solid guy, Anakaji-kun. I think you might just need the right opportunity. I didn't need such kind-hearted yet cruel words. I didn't need to hear girls say things like, oh, but I've heard you're great. Because if I responded with, well then, let's go out, they would reply, well, I don't know about that. I didn't need that. I spend time by myself because I can't make friends or get a girlfriend. You freaking idiot. I'm planning to meet up with Caruso-san and the others at 12:30 to have lunch. Do you want to come with? I think it'll be really fun. Caruso and others, I asked. Yeah, there are about 3 other girls. Want to come? I had to think about that. To be perfectly honest, I'd wanted to interact with Caruso for a while now. However, there wasn't any need to hurry. Besides, if there were other girls, forget about being able to even initiate conversation. I couldn't imagine I'd be able to liven things up. In fact, I'd probably have a dampening effect. I'll pass. I don't think I'm on especially good terms with Caruso's group. Since the end of the first semester, the relationships in our class had been firmly established. How would I go about building friendships with other people at this point? I could already picture Caruso and the other girls disgust. Even though he didn't fully understand my fear of other people, Hirata sat next to me. I can understand that you're feeling hesitant. That's exactly why I want you to rely on me. Hirata wore that eternal, optimistic smile of his. While it was a welcome offer, I shook my head. You only have about 10 minutes before you have to meet them. It'd be better if you just left me here, there's no need to hurry. Besides, I like spending time with you, to an outsider. My words might have sounded like an excuse, but I was honestly satisfied with the current situation. Back when I had just started school, I'd wanted to make friends. I'd wanted to be able to make 100 friends, but naturally, everyone settled down into their own separate factions. It was only a matter of course. Even though I'd only been able to talk with the three idiots Hirata, Kushida, and Sakura, my school life wasn't all that bad. I really believed that. But Hirata wasn't the type to leave someone be if he saw they were alone. Well, how about just the two of us have lunch together, you and me? Would that be okay, just the two of us alone? Sitting on the bed together, Hirata turned to me with a serious look. If he lightly pushed me down, things would get out of hand. Well, I don't particularly dislike the idea, but... Didn't you already promise Caruso? I can eat with Caruso-san and the others anytime, but I haven't really had many opportunities to eat together with you, Anakaji-kan. Normally, a guy would do anything to get the chance to eat a meal with a girl. Typical male thinking. However, Hirata seemed able to prioritize eating with another guy without hesitation. It was enough to give me doubts. Perhaps he swung that way. Hirata was an effortless multitasker, but he never did anything without reason. I'd feel bad if Caruso blamed you later, though. I tried to gently turn him down, but it seemed to appeal to his conscience. I wondered if Hirata considered me a trembling newborn fawn that couldn't even take its first step. Don't worry. I don't think Caruso-san's the kind of girl to hold a grudge. No. Caruso definitely seemed like that kind of girl. Even though she pretended to be nice in front of Hirata, she was domineering with other ladies. I wondered if Hirata had categorized her as not being that type of girl. It reminded me of that teacher from Yamari-sensei, who showed mercy to bad students. Okay, I'll turn Caruso-san down for today. Hirata pulled out his phone to call Caruso. I tried to stop him, but Hirata shot me a look. Is there anything you'd like to eat? I can eat just about anything, I guess. Though I'd like to avoid heavy food if possible, I muttered. The cruise ship had many restaurants. The offerings ranged from junk food like ramen and hamburgers to French cuisine. Since it was still daytime, I wanted to eat something light if possible. I heard Hirata flatly tell Caruso that he was canceling their plans over the phone. I couldn't hear Caruso's voice clearly, but Hirata abruptly hung up. Are you really okay with this? I asked. Of course. Well then, shall we go to the deck? If we're just having a light meal, eating there should be easier. Hirata opened the door, as if to guide me, while I relaxed in bed. Hirata was being his usual concerned self, but taking me out when I wasn't really that enthusiastic was odd. It seemed kind of forceful for Hirata. Especially since he could normally read any situation well. He likely had some kind of ulterior motive. Thank you for helping on the deserted island. I'm sorry I didn't thank you enough for helping to find the culprit, Anakaji-kan. You don't need to apologize. I wasn't even useful. Hirata found the underwear thief. Even so, I'm grateful to you for helping. Speaking of the underwear incident, I had something I wanted to ask. I looked around to confirm we were alone, then broached the topic. Did Caruso get her underwear back? I asked. Yeah. When she heard Ibuki-san was the culprit, things went smoothly. Caruso had her underwear stolen on the island. And for a while there'd been an uproar. Because the underwear was in a guy's bag, the relationship between the guys and girls of Class D had been in a precarious state. But Hirata put his quick thinking to use, and concealed the underwear. Because of this, things had cooled down. I was really glad. It had been an extremely delicate operation, so I was impressed. I'd half believed that Hirata would bungle returning the underwear, despite his skills. Hirata's quiet and peaceful resolution to the underwear fiasco proved that he was steadily climbing the stairway to adulthood. We took the ship's elevator to the deck on the top level. Many of our classmates appeared to be enjoying summer vacation to its fullest. Both guys and girls could be seen in the pool in their bathing suits, boldly frisking around. The heavy frog mood that weighed on us during the test had lifted. This display of wanton indulgence came from the students' liberated desires, which had been suppressed back on the island. We didn't need to use points for any of the facilities on the ship, or for food and drinks. Everything was free of charge. No one had to restrain themselves. You needed to borrow things like swimsuits and other equipment, but that was about it. It was heaven. By the time we reached the restaurant, over half of the seats had already been taken. We slipped past the crowd and secured 2 empty seats. Honestly, there's something I'd like your advice on. Hirata spoke in a slightly apologetic way as he looked down at the menu. Advice? So he did have an ulterior motive, after all. That was probably why he'd wanted time to eat with me. Well, I was grateful. I didn't sweat the reason for an invitation. I'm not really the best person to come to for advice. Can you give me the short version? I wasn't exactly a great talker or listener, but he had likely selected me for a reason. I wondered if you would act as a bridge to help reach Hirata-san. After all, Class D will have to come together and work hard in the future, and I think Hirata-san will be indispensable. So that's what he wanted to talk to me about, huh? When I nodded, Hirata continued with confidence. The other day, Class D got a major boost thanks to Hirata-san. Class morale has shot up. And more than anything else, the number of people who idolize Hirata-san has increased. This is a big opportunity. Well, I suppose so. Hirata Suzune was a student in Class D. And the first friend I'd made upon starting school. I was her first friend as well, but she was a solitary, standoffish person. She was an honors student. Highly accomplished both in literary and martial arts. Her weakness was her aloof, independent personality. She didn't involve herself with anyone due to her high-handed attitude. And she wasn't very good at socializing. That's why I think she should try and get along with everyone right now. If she cooperated with us, I think we could get up to Class C, and then B. No. We could even reach Class A from anyone else. It would have sounded phony, but Hirata had been singing Harikita's praises since we started school. He'd been aware of her potential from the start and didn't seem to dislike her at all. I wouldn't mind helping him out. The task was simple. I could at least bring Hirata and Harikita closer together. But that probably wouldn't lead to a permanent solution. But even if I can bring you both together, things won't be that easy. Harikita is difficult. If I asked her to soften her approach, she'd turn me down. If Harikita believed I was trying to manipulate her, things could end in disaster. She would distance herself even further. Her response to Kushita's push for friendship in the cafe during our first semester was proof of that. Yes, I do understand, of course. Harikita-san only opens herself up to you, Anakaji-kan. I don't want to force her confidence. That's why I wanted to tell you my intentions, so that you can talk to her. Then, pretend I never spoke to you, so I was supposed to be the Harikita whisperer. I would be the go-between, delivering Hirata's opinions to Harikita. If I did that, Harikita would enter into an unseen partnership with Hirata, and never realize it. If I thought she'd listen to me, things would be simple enough. But it won't be that easy. I usually just go along with whatever Harikita says. I've never really forced my opinion on her. If I just suddenly start voicing strong opinions, she'll probably find it suspicious. If she finds out it's your opinion, I think she'll shut down completely. But I can't come up with anything else right now. I don't think I have the confidence to speak with Harikita-san, let alone persuade her. This is my last resort. Don't you think it's a little soon for last resorts? Hirata clearly wanted to join forces with Harikita, but he'd have to face her directly. I understood it was difficult. But so was coordinating groups of people. Harikita would probably agree. No one else in our class cherished friendship and community the way Hirata did. I was still uncertain about his proposal. It seemed like he'd lost his nerve and was doubting himself. Hirata had also been acting strangely back on the island. This wasn't a trivial matter. I ordered a light sandwich and a drink. Students swam in the pool nearby, and others were eating while still wearing their bathing suits. Everyone appeared to be having fun. If Ike and Yamauchi were here, they probably would have foregone the food and feasted their eyes on the girls instead. Hirata didn't pay any attention to the girls at all, but focused squarely on me. Yeah, you may be right. Like you said, Anakaji-kan, my plan was really short-sighted. He recognized his error in judgment and gave an honest, flexible response. Another of Hirata's many charms. But his desire to work together with Harikita was so strong, he showed no signs of giving up. I should probably reconsider how to do this. Harikita-san seems very fastidious and hypercritical. How do you manage to get along with her, Anakaji-kan? Hirata wanted to become Harikita's friend before establishing a working relationship. I thought facing her directly was the right thing to do. It was constructive, and I wanted to lend a hand, but, well, in truth, I don't think I'm on especially good terms with Harikita. Recently, I wondered if we could even be called friends. But it does seem like Harikita-san gets along well with you alone, Anakaji-kan. You're special to her. Special, huh? Hard to believe that someone with over 40 friends would say that to someone barely acquainted with one person. Or perhaps it was because he was able to get along with over 40 people that Hirata felt frustrated at missing a connection with one particular student. There's no need to get impatient, right? The first semester's only just ended. Bonds between people must fundamentally strengthen over time. Sometimes, you can place people together under sudden, harsh conditions, like the test on the island, and watch those bonds strengthen overnight. Of course, while you might see instant improvement via that method, those bonds can often be fragile. Harikita isn't the type to make friends easily. I wanted Hirata to understand. That's probably true. Hirata appeared slightly remorseful. Perhaps he felt like he was rushing things again. I wasn't thinking about her feelings. I was just thinking of myself. Hirata shook himself from his reverie. Again, he smiled. Sorry, I invited you out to eat and made it all about me. Well, let's eat, shall we? With that, we started eating our recently arrived food. However, Hirata looked up and seemed to notice someone approaching us. He shot me a nonplussed look. So you're here after all, Hirata-kan. Let's eat lunch together. Caruso approached us, leading a group of girls. She sounded happy and carefree. Caruso-san, I thought I cancelled our plans. Hirata stumbled over his words, looking unsure. Meanwhile, Caruso and the girls pulled out the chairs from another table, pushed me away, and circled Hirata. Our lunch went from peaceful to noisy in seconds flat. I wasn't much of a talker, but I wasn't really concerned. I was used to dealing with situations like this. It was probably time for me to use the special skill I'd acquired since school began, my speedy escape. I grabbed my food and got up quietly, without making a sound. Hirata's eyes met mine for a moment, but the girls closed ranks and he disappeared. Maybe this was one of the select disadvantages of having so many friends, with so much time devoted to others. You didn't really get any time for yourself. Even if Hirata had issues weighing him down, he couldn't talk about them with Caruso and the others. Instead, he held them unspoken in his heart too. One after Caruso monopolized Hirata, I decided to return to my room. I didn't have anyone else to hang out with or talk to, anyway. I took the stairs rather than the elevator, and returned to my room on the third deck. When I got there, I noticed some wet blotches scattered about the hallway floor. The blotches appeared to head toward my room. When I followed the trail, I discovered an elegant man striding through the corridor, nude from the waist up, wearing nothing but a bathing suit. Sir, please don't walk through the hallway while you're still dripping wet. A young bellhop hurried toward the man, apparently eager to control this emergency situation. The bellhop was already holding out a towel, overly prepared. Like he always walked around with a strategic towel ready. Ha ha ha. It appears you found me, eh? The man said. Yes, I found you. This is the fourth time. I've already told you. Please dry yourself off after you leave the pool. If you don't, you'll disturb the other passengers. Apparently, this man was a repeat offender. That explained the bellhop's prepared towels. Disturb? But I've no memory of disturbing anyone. I don't dry myself off with a towel on principle ever since reaching the age of reason. Haven't I already said? A fine man, dripping with water. Yes. The man was Kalenji. He slicked back his wet hair, scattering droplets of water. The bellhop hurriedly used the towel to dry the spots on the carpet and wall. Kalenji stopped. I wondered if he found the bellhop's flustered behavior amusing. Do you have a pen and paper on hand? He asked. Oh. Due to the nature of my job, I do walk around with a notepad and pen. But, the bellhop, clearly unsure where the conversation was headed, fearfully took out a ballpoint pen. Did you know that a prominent celebrity's signature can accrue an unexpectedly premium value over time? Abroad, some autographs are valued in the millions to even the tens of millions, and what of it? After Kalenji finished scribbling something on the notepad, he thrust it back at the bellhop. It was far away, but I was able to make out the name Kalenji Rakusuk. What is this? Isn't it obvious? A signature. Even though it's written on such a cheap notepad, it will certainly hold tremendous value in the future. I'm presenting this to you as a token for your troubles. Please receive it gratefully and safeguard it. Apparently Kalenji believed the bellhop would receive this with gratitude, or perhaps a sense of awe-inspired devotion. But no one in their right mind would want this. If anything, his ballpoint pen and notepad were worth more. Please don't look so suspicious. I am the man who will carry Japan's future on his back. At that point, I intend to vacation upon a larger ship, but I'm prepared to wait until then, of course. It will be a luxury liner of significantly higher quality than the common ship upon which we are now riding. Well, a luxury liner was still a luxury liner. Personally, I'd be satisfied as long as it wasn't fated to sink like the Titanic. Kalenji guffawed, seemingly satisfied. The bellhop, completely dumbstruck, continued staring at the wet spots on the floor. He had completely lost the will to keep trying to stop this man. Kalenji was alone all the time because our classmates steered clear of him, disgusted by his incredibly selfish personality. Many of our classmates had already experienced the same treatment as this poor bellhop. Hirata would probably try to speak with him, but he'd most likely be brushed off as well. Kalenji was like poison. Anyone who encountered him, friend or foe, suffered for it. In order to avoid being dragged into something so bothersome, I slunk past the two of them. Getting too near a person of such high rank would be dangerous.